Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer Podcast. I am Thomas Vick. Seth Wilson is the other co-host of this great podcast. Seth, how's it going today?
Thomas, I'm doing great. It is basketball tournament season time. I know we can't say certain things without violating license rights or whatever, but it's always a fun time of year. So the question I think on everybody's mind is, who do you have winning it all?
I think I have Michigan winning it all. The coach for Michigan, Dusty May, uh, his varsity basketball coach was my high school basketball coach. So a little bit of a south side of Indianapolis connection there. So kind of rooting for them, but I wouldn't be unhappy if Matt Painter and the Purdue Boilermakers actually end up winning it all. I'm an Indiana fan, but needless to say, they play better basketball than IU does.
Well, at least you got the football thing for IU, right? That's
There you
pretty
go.
important. Yeah.
There you go.
I'm sticking with the Boilermakers. I'm hoping that the year is here for them to finish strong. The tournament has not been kind to them ever since I can remember, and so I hope I didn't do anything to hurt their chances by picking them to win it all on the bracket. It nonetheless is a fun time of year, and it just reminds me of reaching the goals that you set for yourself and how much hard work goes into the accomplishment of goals, and kind of got me thinking about, we're coming up at the end of the first quarter here in 2026. So thinking back on maybe what our top three lessons that we've learned already this year might be. So I thought maybe that'd be a good topic for us to talk about today.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Seth, how about you start us out with what you've learned so far this year?
Well, this is one I think that just bears repeating over and over again for me, because I can get in a locked in mode of I got to get all this stuff done, and I have a lot of irons in the fire. So the one is just the networking, the importance of networking and continuing to build and stay committed to the process of networking, even in the midst of times when I'm pretty busy with work or other commitments, because that is how you stay top of mind with folks and how you serve well by being out and about in the community. So I know we've talked about that at various junctures over the podcast already this year, but that's been a big lesson for me of reminding myself to keep those lunch appointments and coffee appointments on the calendar and be consistent with those.
Yeah, I think that's always a great reminder that you need to always be networking, always be marketing. If you've got your online presence is really important. I've noticed in my own practice that my online presence has actually, shown up in Chat GPT and Grok and things like that, surprisingly for clients. That's how clients are finding me now. I never knew that I would be found by, somebody searching in an AI platform. But online presence is really important in addition to, networking and lunch appointments. If you're an estate planning attorney, meeting with those financial advisors, and just getting your name out there in the community. You just need to always make sure that you're making efforts. You can never find a time where you can't do marketing. There's just always something that needs to be done with that.
Yeah, and I think an encouragement is first level is getting there and showing up to whatever it may be, but you really need to put yourself out there in front of folks and be the person initiating conversations and be prepared with good questions to ask to keep the conversation alive, as you're talking, and don't just go sit in the corner. Well, I'm here, that counts. It does, and the discipline I think is important, but you need to take that next step and push maybe through some discomfort and make sure you're introducing yourself to people, and don't be afraid to introduce yourself as a lawyer, and I'm an attorney and here's what I do, and just get information out there. And people notice when you show up at similar events in your community, and you can start to build those connections and people see that you're out and about. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So I guess that's number one. Always be networking, always be marketing. What's another thing that you've learned over the course of these first 3 months of 2026?
The second one that kind of came to mind was a topic we discussed a little bit a couple weeks ago, which is finishing the existing work. And so, if you're going to network and bring in cases, you need to do something with that work that you've generated. And we talked a lot about how there's different reasons why you may not want to finish a project that's on your desk, but the importance of getting that through the system as quickly as possible is really the reminder that I've had of this stuff needs to get out the door as quick as we can, even in the midst of a busy season. And so do that quality work, but get the clients served and finish the project. Don't leave the file unclosed on the corner of your desk. Get it through the system, get it through the retention policy, and make sure that you're moving things through the system.
Let me ask you a question about that, Seth. What prevents us as attorneys from closing a file?
I think there's a couple reasons. Just me personally, a lot of times, one of the things you're kind of afraid of is where is the next case going to come from? And if I finish this work, will I have anything else to do? Well, in my experience, you may finish that and there may be a lull, but there always seems to be something else to do. And if it's not case related, it's oftentimes firm related. You can work on something related to the firm or networking or doing something like that. So I think that's one. I think another one oftentimes is lack of knowledge about what to do with a situation. And so it just kind of sits there because you don't know what step to take next. And I know for me, sometimes I'll get a note from a client or a communication from a client with a problem that they're facing, and I can't respond to it because I don't know what to tell them yet. I haven't really gotten a good response in place or a good strategy or something that I think will actually help resolve the issue. And so those are things that personally I have to be aware of and make sure I'm fighting through. And if I can't figure something out, I need to be calling some other reinforcements in, so to speak, calling some colleagues and saying, hey, I got this situation. I'm not quite sure what to do with it. Do you have any advice?
Yeah, I agree with that. Just not knowing how to address the issue to close the file is one big impediment to actually closing the file. There's cases that we do have a grasp on and we know what needs to be done. We tend to give those more attention and we set aside those that we have to do some research on. We got to ponder it a little bit. If you got to think on a case for a while, that's fine, but kind of have a plan for when you're going to pick up that case again. You're going to look at it in detail. Sometimes you do need to take a step back and just kind of meditate, kind of think on what needs to happen, and then from there you can make decisions. But it all needs to be part of your workflow. You can't just set it aside and never think about it again. That's where attorneys can really get into trouble, where they're not giving the client the attention that is needed, and that's where a lot of mistakes of attorneys are seen.
And I think it's really important that you have a good system in place throughout the life cycle of the case. And so from the front end to new inputs related to that case, so if you're getting materials in from the mail or electronically, how are you getting them into the file, so to speak, to make sure that things are getting processed and addressed and responded to? And it looks like we may have had some technical difficulty with Thomas there. So I will go through the last one we were going to talk about, which was setting aside more than you need or think you need for tax payments on a particular year. We're right at tax season, and so it's often good to have the review of the last year's work and set up for the next year and figuring out the best way to allocate those resources as they come in so you can make sure that you stay ahead on the tax side of things. It's a challenging situation to be sure, especially as your practice is just getting started, to take some of that money aside when you know you need it to apply it to a case or a bill or something like that. So, but being disciplined on setting aside those tax payments so when the tax bills come, whether those are quarterly estimated payments or year-end taxes, you have enough in the account to follow through with that obligation. Very important to make sure that gets off your mind so you can focus on serving your clients. So we are the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer Podcast. You can find us out on YouTube. We have that Lifetime Legacy Lawyers handle, and we're working on actually building out a new website as well for the podcast and get some more resource and materials out there as well. So we will look forward to seeing everyone on the next episode.